mate? You're just trying to keep warm, are you? You all right, mate?
Every year, hundreds of children are being held in Queensland's police watchhouses, like this one. In the Brisbane City Watchhouse, kids often outnumber adults. Here, they are being held alongside some of the state's most hardened adult criminals, and often for extended periods of time.
The most dangerous people in Australia go in those watch houses. You know, they're in there for murder. They're in there, there's pedophiles, there's every bad person in Australia goes through that system. We've got 10-year-old kids going into the watch houses. Why are we doing this?
It risks turning into a human rights crisis.
At the end of the day, this is a concrete pen designed to hold adults in an acute and dangerous state.
With this state's youth detention centres overflowing, kids as young as 10 are now ending up in maximum security adult watchhouses like this, sometimes for weeks at a time. Tonight on Four Corners, we go behind the cell doors of Queensland's watchhouses to investigate what insiders tell us are serious breaches of international law. It's just after 9 on a Saturday night, and Sergeant John McHugh and Senior Constable Cody Gilchrist are heading out on patrol. They're members of the Rapid Action Patrol, or RAP, a quick response squad on the front line of policing in Townsville in North Queensland. Many of those they're arresting are juveniles. Four Corners is spending the graveyard shift with them, and tonight they have several moving targets on their radar.
700 to 717. Over the course of last night, what came to our attention was a red Range Rover. They were very active last night throughout the Townsville district itself, basically identified as committing a number of traffic offences, but it's also suspected of being involved in other offending as well, stealings.
So the red Range Rover is a bit of a priority for you tonight?
Yeah, that's correct.
McHugh and Gilchrist are less than 10 minutes into their shift when, remarkably, they spot their quarry.
Red Range Rover.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. 709 is just left from Ian onto Main Road. It's on Gordon now. There's lots coming now.
Yes, 717 is the detail. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've had a successful stand appointment on that Range Rover past 101 on Gordon Street.
The car pursuit lasts 10 minutes through several Townsville suburbs, ending when police road spikes blow out the Range Rover's front tyre.
Stop, police!
Monitoring all units on vehicles last seen on Nick Street, inbound Nick Street.
Get on the police, get on the ground! You're under arrest for unlawful use of a motor vehicle. Don't move!
This is the only one that ran this way. No, my name's Sergeant John McHugh of the Townsville Rapid Action and Patrol Unit. Time is 21:42 on the 6th of April 2019. You're now under arrest for unlawful use of a motor vehicle. Do you understand that?
But suddenly a textbook arrest becomes a medical emergency.
You also have the right to telephone or speak to a lawyer of your choice, to inform that lawyer where you are, and to arrange or attempt to arrange for that lawyer to be present during question.
Yeah.
Just relax. We're going to take these cuffs off you. We're getting an ambulance for you.
Your hands free, John.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, confirm. Just one male. He's having a conscious. He's breathing.
Have you taken ice tonight? No. Have you taken cannabis tonight? No. You got asthma? Where's your puffer? Is it in your bag? Use your hand, mate. We're going to let you do it.
All right.
That's it.
Good lad. Good lad. That's the way. Get it up. Get it up. Get it up.
Here we go. Where the ambos?
Ambos are here, mate. Ambos are here. You're all right.
Just stay there. He's run from a stolen vehicle, complaining of trouble with his chest and breathing.
Stay there.
How long has he been like this for?
About 5 minutes. He was just shaking and then he coughed up a little bit of fluid, but he's been like this.
As ambulance officers treat him, police have arrested 2 other suspects. Both are 16 years old. Both will be charged with unlawful use of a motor vehicle, one of them with burglary and fraud.
Yep, I'm all good. Thank you very much. Good work. Excellent job, guys.
1, 2, 3. Stay there, Joe.
For this 19-year-old, it's off to hospital. He will later be charged with serious offences and taken to the Townsville Police Watch House.
It's not just a case of juveniles committing crime. There's obviously underlying community issues that are causing that to happen.
And where are you taking this juvenile?
To the watch house.
Yeah, I think we're good for that.
Right.
VKR Tango Whiskey 700. Can you show us over the watch house? Odo 4834.
The 2 16-year-olds arrested after tonight's police chase are already on their way to the watch house. And when the Townsville cells are full or there's nowhere for them to go, they're flown 1,300 kilometres south to Brisbane.
Since about March last year, we have had an increase of numbers of youth held in the Brisbane Watch House and also in other watch houses around the state. If youth are held in a watch house in another part of the state for longer than 3 days, we usually transport them to the Brisbane Watch House.
And is that because the youth detention centres are at capacity?
The youth detention centres, have a finite number of people they can take, so therefore the watch houses is the second place that they remain.
The Brisbane City Watch House is the state's largest, with room for 91 inmates. It can be a tough and terrifying place for a hardened adult offender, let alone for a child who's brought here.
A wide range of people come through the Brisbane Watch House, all those from committing serious offences, as in homicides, or terrorism offences, right down to street offences, including drunk.
As one police officer remarked to me, this place is a fortress. Not a single prisoner has ever escaped from here. A maximum security facility, Brisbane City Watch House, was designed to hold adults, including some of this state's most violent offenders. But in recent times, more and more children are being held here, some as young as 11 and 12 years of age.
Just heading to a isolation cell. These cells are used normally for persons that are violent with us, for their own safety and our safety. They get placed into this.
So that's all padded?
It's all padded.
Chief Superintendent Cameron Harsley is in charge of all 63 of Queensland's watch houses.
And the kids are put in these isolation cells as well as the adults?
Everybody, juveniles as well. So if you're violent and you're playing up, you want to fight or hurt yourself, We place you in here to calm you down, and for your own safety, you can punch the walls all day long in here, you're not going to hurt yourself.
Okay, after you.
So isolation is against international law, against the domestic laws here in Australia. We know isolation traumatises kids, traumatises adults. We shouldn't be putting kids in this situation.
Queensland's 2 youth detention centres where kids are supposed to be held are full, despite a continuing decline in youth crime. The reasons? There are not enough beds. 17-year-olds are now classified as children, and the union is refusing to allow any more young people to be squeezed in.
At the end of the day, this is a concrete pen designed to hold adults in an acute and dangerous state for up to 48 hours. And the new arrangements meant that kids were going to not only be held in that same high secure environment, which does feel like a high secure prison, but for much longer periods.
So it fluctuates. So the average time a youth is in watch house at Brisbane at the moment is about 6 days. We have had a 17-year-old in the Brisbane watch house up to 33 days.
And when we talk about juveniles or children, what age group are we talking about that ends up in a watch house?
So you're not criminally responsible in Queensland if you're under the age of 10. So youth are between 10 and 18 within Queensland.
Obviously, to some people, they'd think, well, 10 is very young to end up in a watch house type facility.
Yeah, that's correct. You know, the age appears to us to be young, but we also need to look at the offending behaviour of some of these people. Doing armed robberies with knives, stealing cars out on the street, you know, that type of behaviour is just as dangerous to them as it is to the broader community.
These kids get labelled as crims by mainstream society, but I can tell you that they are in there for the most minor of crimes, and the important thing to note is that the vast majority of them have never actually been convicted. They are victims of serious child abuse and neglect, physical neglect, emotional neglect. They've never felt safe in the environments they've grown up in. They've never felt loved.
Natalie Siegel-Brown is Queensland's public guardian. One of the roles of this independent office is to monitor and advocate for the rights of every single kid in the child protection system, including the growing numbers now held inside the Brisbane City Watch House.
If we don't think it's justifiable to hold adults for more than 48 hours in these circumstances, what are we doing to children who are being held for up to a month in these circumstances? And I can tell you that my staff are reporting significant mental wellbeing decline and psychiatric decline for these kids.
The Office of the Public Guardian sends what are called community visitors into the watch house to check on the kids and to advocate on their behalf. Janet Pearson is one of them.
Just seeing kids peeping out of the cell doors, out of the little cell hatches that they put the food on, they peep out of there and they're craning their necks to look at you, and they've got tears in their eyes, and they'll just say, "Miss, when am I getting out of here?" Or, "Miss, can you tell them I didn't do it?" Or, "Miss, tell them that I want to talk to Mum." And it's horrible. It's really harrowing. And then you've got to extract yourself and move on to the next one.
They do not have access to the outdoors. If they are lucky, they get up to 15 minutes exercise in a four-walled pen with mesh over the sky roof. These kids are lying on their 2 squares of mattress in front of the cell with a blanket over their head. They have no stimulation. The lights are on all the time. They get dimmed a bit at night, but the lights are on all the time.
Janet Pearson remembers a group of 11 and 12-year-old Aboriginal boys from far north Queensland who she visited in the Brisbane Watch House and who struck her as particularly helpless.
They were sitting at a table with their legs dangling off the chair and they couldn't reach the floor. We managed to get them some colouring books inside the pod and some crayons, And the faces just lit up and they just sat up on the table and did some colouring.
So you got 11-year-olds in the watch house colouring?
Colouring in books, yeah.
Four Corners has hundreds of pages of correspondence and reports from the Office of the Public Guardian, obtained under right to information laws. They detail serious problems with drugs, with kids attempting suicide, with children being put in isolation, including one child for weeks, with kids with disabilities or psychological problems being locked up, and in one case, a girl being placed in with 2 alleged male sex offenders.
I think what the reports from my officers show is that we have significant numbers of kids from traumatised backgrounds with significant prevalence of cognitive impairment, held like caged animals in concrete pens. I can't imagine what these kids are experiencing when they're in full view of adults, having all sorts of episodes, coming down off drugs, listening to the screaming. Some of these kids might be 12 years old, but some of them are operating at the capacity of a 6-year-old.
One report from last year highlights the case of a child under 14 deemed permanently unfit to plead after being assessed as having the cognitive functioning of someone younger than 6 years old. There was a 13-year-old with profound hearing loss kept in the watch house for 5 days. There was a case of a 17-year-old girl who told a youth worker she'd taken the tranquiliser Xanax laced with ice while in the watch house. The report said she then began peeing and masturbating all over the watch house and that she wasn't given medical treatment before release. And there was an Aboriginal girl with an intellectual impairment and fetal alcohol syndrome kept in the Cairns watch house for 8 days. The Office of the Public Guardian noting she was distressed and suicidal, and it gets worse.
It's been reported that there are 3 children who have had their fingertips cut off in doors in the watch house cells. I'm aware that there's been about 3 suicide attempts, and children who report feeling like caged animals, as any human being, child or otherwise, would feel in that environment for a long period of time. There are a great deal of threats to self-harm.
Cameron Harsley says he knows of only one incident where a child's fingertip was severed, but he acknowledges there have been multiple suicide attempts.
Yeah, we've had young people in the watch house that have tried to commit suicide. We've intervened on each occasion. We've either removed them to an isolation cell or more likely than not, we take them to a mental health facility up at the hospital and get them assessed for their wellbeing.
These kids are in a watch house, an adult maximum security facility. Should kids with autism, with profound intellectual disabilities be in a watch house?
If the magistrate has ordered for them to be in the watch house and we do not have any space in the detention centre, then there is no alternative for them.
Di Farmer is Queensland's Minister for Child Safety. Are you aware of suicide attempts by young people in the watch house?
I am aware that there have been young people who are suicidal.
But actual attempts?
Yes, I think there have been 1 or 2 attempts.
The police say there have been several. How comfortable are you with that, given, again, this is an acute facility for adults?
Of course I'm not comfortable with that. It is why there are really rigorous processes to assess the kids who are most at harm when they come into those watch houses, to make sure that they get additional, they get specialist assessment of how high the risk actually is.
This is a suicide smock. Young people or kids who threaten self-harm inside the watch house are forced to wear one, then placed in isolation.
That's for their own safety. A smock is very similar to a hospital smock. It is designed so you can't hang yourself or harm yourself with it.
So until very recently, the children were not permitted to wear underwear under their suicide smock on the basis that the underwear might also be used to attempt or succeed at committing suicide. And it's only been with a great deal of advocacy from my office that the children and young people are now allowed to wear underwear under the suicide smocks.
It is the judgment of the police that it's appropriate to put them in those smocks.
What's your judgment as the minister responsible?
Well, I have to take the advice of the police that that is the thing that is going to minimise harm. So that's their advice, and they, they're quite unequivocal about that.
The use of isolation on children inside the watch house has distressed the public guardian. One official report describes how a girl with a history of suicide attempts spent 9 days in an observation cell on her own in a suicide gown. But there are other teenagers who've been kept isolated for longer.
My understanding from my reports are that there was a young man held in an isolation cell for 23 days. It's a pretty dehumanising experience for anybody. So when my staff or myself speak to children in those isolation cells, you must speak to them through a slot that is only yay big. I had to kneel on the ground to peer through to be able to communicate with a young person. So it's not just the mere isolation, but you can imagine any human being in a concrete pen forced to communicate through that method would feel dehumanised. But what's that doing for a child?
There are internal reports about that particular case, 23 days.
Okay. Well, I certainly haven't been made aware of that, but I can tell you that most certainly this is not an environment, obviously, that is good for young people.
Amnesty International has spent 3 years investigating children in watch houses.
We analysed around 200 case notes within a 12-month period coming out of the Brisbane City Watch House, and we found over 2,600 individual violations of human rights law, domestic laws and domestic procedures. This is just 12 months, and we know the situation's getting worse.
I don't even need to know about human rights issues without. I don't want the young people there. I don't need anyone to even tell me. I don't need it even pointed out. I know that we do not want those young people in the watch houses, and.
But is that a breach of human rights law, international law, state laws?
Well, we haven't introduced a human rights bill in Queensland yet.
I do think when the Human Rights Act commences next year, it's very likely, if these conditions persist, that a complaint will be made. And I think the government will find that it is in breach of the conditions.
So there were 30-odd children there ranging between 10 and 17.
Queensland's Anti-Discrimination Commissioner Scott McDougall is another who's speaking out to Four Corners, and he did so just hours after touring the Brisbane Watch House.
Well, it's very distressing, I have to say. I think any person who goes into that environment and sees the conditions in which those children are being held could not help but be moved. There's children who are spending up to 2 weeks in solitary confinement in a cell without any contact with other inmates or personnel. And there's children housed in close proximity to adults. There were 2 children who were 12 years old who, I don't know how long they were in there for, but they caused a lot of distress to police who were supervising them. They were in there for unlawful use of a motor vehicle.
12 years old?
12 years old.
Scott McDougall has been in touch with the state government, proposing ways of getting kids and juveniles out of watchhouses.
We've written to the Premier and suggested that they do what happened in 1994, and that is urgently build some purpose-built temporary accommodation at the Brisbane Youth Detention Centre. I don't know why it hasn't been done. It seems like a pretty simple solution.
A fortnight after Four Corners first approached the Minister Di Farmer, and on the very day before this interview, she announced a new $300 million plan, including 48 youth detention beds.
As of today, right as we speak, 85 children in the watch house. One kid's been in there, a 16-year-old, for more than 40 days, which is a record now. Surely that's something, if you read the records every morning when you wake up, that bothers you.
It does.
And under your plan, those kids will be out. When?
Look, I don't like to give a definite date. I would hope by the second half of next year we can see that there are only kids in watch houses who are really just there as the general kind of process of things.
In Queensland, it's against the law to identify any child who has been through the criminal justice system. This 12-year-old boy spent 3 days inside the Brisbane watch house, remanded on car theft charges.
It's just scary for me at that age. This was my first time in the Brisbane City watch house. Scary.
Why were you scared?
Like, cause the security staff, they was just like swearing at me, calling me little black C's. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, I didn't like it. And it's just, yeah, it scared me.
Were you scared with the other big boys in the cells?
Yeah, because I was the smallest in there, yeah. And they put me in with a couple of other boys that I didn't know. It's so scary. And like, if they wanted to fight me, like, I could fight them back, but then like, I'll be getting bashed, like, yeah.
This 12-year-old says during his time at the watch house, he saw one juvenile taken into an isolation room.
Yeah, there was one fella, when he come out to make a phone call, like, they didn't let him, like, do it. Then he just went off, like, chucking things around and just, like, and how they restrained him, like, they just flipped him onto his chest and just restrained him and chucked him in the padded cells. It's like, holy shit. Yeah, it just frightened me.
And did you ever have to go in the padded cells?
Nah, like, when I first come in, yeah, for strip search, they come in to, like, they put me in the padded cell to strip search, yeah.
So they strip searched you?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Like, so it's like, yeah, I was like, kind of have my own privacy, like, that's just gay, like, to me, but that's just gay, yeah.
So youth, if they have to be strip searched, are removed to a separate room. Usually a youth worker is there, or it's always video and audio recorded, everything that happens with youth in the watch house. And it's done for a reason if we have to do that, and in particular the safety of our officers and also the safety of the youth.
We have had complaints from children that, for example, one young lady said that she was held down by several officers and stripped to be put in a suicide smock in full view of male officers. I am aware that the squat and cough method of strip searching is used in the watch house.
The Public Guardian may be able to monitor and advocate for kids inside the Brisbane City watch house, but for children in the state's 60-odd other watch houses outside the southeast corner, there's little or no oversight. Four Corners has learned of the case of a 13-year-old here in the watch house in Mount Isa who was kept in for more than a week, while another child with an intellectual disability was held for a fortnight.
The regional watch houses are a giant black hole for me. I have no idea what's happening for kids in those places.
We've got 10-year-old kids going into the watch houses. And Queensland locked more kids up between the age of 10 and 15 than any other state in Australia. Why are we doing this? Why are we so wrong in this country? We've been coming up here for the last 4 or 5 years talking to people around these same issues, around kids in the justice system, and we've seen the same things going on, and it's actually, the last 2 years, it's actually got worse. And yous have got stories to tell, and I just want to listen to what yous have got to say.
Rodney Dillon is Amnesty International's Indigenous Rights Advisor. More than half the kids locked up in Queensland's watch houses are Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. He's come to Mount Isa to talk to people about kids being put in the local watch house, and everyone here has a story to tell him.
It doesn't matter where my grandson walked or any of my other boys. The police pulled them up wherever they walked. They keep asking all these boys what they're doing, you know. They can't even walk from A to B or B to C unless the police was harassing them. Yeah, I know all my boys ain't angels. I'm worried about my grandson. He gets mistreated all the time. I'm sorry for crying.
This woman was at home last year when police came to serve papers on her 12-year-old grandson to appear in court. Like many kids in Mount Isa, he's had previous run-ins with the police. What happened next shows how quickly these situations can escalate.
Talk to him and do him some paperwork, that's it.
I don't want to fucking do that thing.
We just want to
fuck you, nigga. I'll punch you in the mouth if you fucking like that.
We're not pushing you at all.
I'll punch you in the mouth.
We just need your other hand.
We
just need your other hand. We're not
hurting you. Fucking white people with a uniform with punch you in your motherfucker.
We just wanted to give you some paperwork, mate. That's it.
I'll punch you in the mouth. You motherfucker.
Come on, just go to the police station with him.
Fucking good.
Go with your mother. Go with Mum here.
He's upset.
Motherfucker, out of my way, you motherfucker.
And you make sure you treat him properly in the police station too.
A lot of swearing going. We abuse the police too.
Look at all the cops for fucking one
little kid. Look how many police for one little kid.
Go on, you go over there and break his fucking arm, dude.
Something must be happening to my grandson on the street. For him don't want to talk to the police. We are upset because he's a little 12-year-old boy.
But your language needs to stop, okay?
1, 2, 3. 3 police cars came to arrest my grandson.
The boy ended up spending the night in the Mount Isa watch house.
The hatred they build up for the policemen, the hatred they build up for the system, they come out worse than when they went in. And that's what we're trying to stop. They're the things that we think is the worst part about this system.
It's early Sunday morning, and inside the Brisbane City Watch House, the human debris of a night of drinking, drugs and crime is being processed and locked up.
The girl that's in the cell with the dark top on, she's a serious assault. She spat in a police officer's face. What do you need to do? Hey, there's a toilet in the corner.
I said I need to pee and there's blood on this seat. Are you kidding me?
Oh, okay, hang on.
Not far from here is the wing where the children and young people are held.
You're right, mate. It's got to keep warm, aren't you? You're right, mate.
In the eerie midnight gloom of the watch house, it's hard to believe that just metres away from these men are children.
I'm absolutely aware that children have been held within full view of adults. I've seen the pods where this occurs, and in fact I've seen with my own eyes a convicted pedophile held in an observation cell adjacent to cells where children are being held.
In an email to the Director-General of the Department of Justice and Attorney-General late last year, Natalie Segal-Brown raised a series of concerns, including the case of a young female who was mistakenly put in with 2 alleged male sex offenders.
I'm very disturbed to know that a young girl was placed in a pod with 2 alleged sex offenders, but I think what that highlights for me is concern about the systems or the oversights that could have led to that situation in the first place.
The Director-General responded to her email, saying that a number of the allegations would be considered serious misconduct.
Were you, your office or your department made aware of an incident late last year, so reasonably in recent times, in which a young female was placed accidentally, apparently, with 2 alleged male sex offenders?
No, I was not made aware of that.
You weren't made aware of that at all?
No, I'm not aware of that incident.
One case in particular has disturbed Natalie Segal-Brown.
There was a young 16-year-old girl who had been in the watch house held for 11 days, at which point she found out she was about 10 weeks pregnant. So we vehemently advocated for her to be moved to the youth detention centre where she could receive appropriate medical and health support. At that point, we were advised she would not be moved, and the only response to her pregnancy was to remove the Valium she was being given at night to help her sleep.
After 5 days of badgering the Department of Youth Justice, the girl was finally moved out of the watch house.
Young people in watch houses is not a suitable place for them to be. It's having impact on the psychological well-being of you people in the watch house. Having to put up with these kids and caged up like they are is really setting us up for fail. And I said to these
The
guys,
presence of children inside the Brisbane watch house has angered the powerful police union and many of its members.
serious injury or a death. It is having an effect on the police who are there as well. They're nothing more than babysitters at this point in time, and we're dealing with children who have special needs when they're in custody, and we do not have the facilities nor the capability to be able to do that. They're a holding place.
Internal watch house emails obtained by Four Corners confirm that some staff are struggling because of the presence of kids. Team, there is no magic button to push and make things better, but I am hopeful that we will start to see some relief very shortly. I know people are stressed and tired, but please bear with us. Please support each other by just turning up to work.
Absolutely, they're stressed and tired, they're fatigued, and they've simply had enough. And we feel like we're almost being set up to fail in this circumstance because we don't have the support or the facilities to be able to properly house these young people who are in custody.
So you've had officers who are distressed having to deal with kids?
That's correct, and they're parents themselves, so they see these children distressed or their behaviours, and they themselves can't deal with that, and I respect that. It's not for everyone, and we move them out to other duties.
I've been informed that some police officers last only 2 hours in the watch house environment. It is highly traumatic.
It's 2 a.m, and in Townsville, the rain has started to beat down.
At 109.
Sergeant John McHugh and Senior Constable Cody Gilchrist from the Rapid Action Patrol are still out on the beat.
Village Park's just that way. So we can probably cut it off if we go the main drag. So there's a park like parallel.
An urgent call has come over the radio. McHugh and Gilchrist are now racing towards a break and enter that's in progress.
So we might.
I believe they said one was running in the Watton Street.
You haven't cleared it yet?
No, we're clearing it now. Yeah, guys, we're just clearing the gym now, and that flow we're inside.
Two youngsters are soon apprehended in a nearby street. The two are detained, questioned and searched.
How old are you, bud?
14.
14?
Yeah.
How old are you, buddy?
17.
17.
Yeah.
Why aren't you home?
I never was about to get to our auntie's house, but yeah.
You been smoking tonight?
Cigarettes, yeah.
Just cigarettes? No yardy or anything?
No.
It looks like they'll be doing another trip to the watch house. But after 20 minutes of questioning, these two are off the hook.
We've got one little detour on the way that will get us home, all right? And day off. We'll take it together.
But for these boys, it's a paddy wagon ride home, rather than a cell in a watch house.
I'm very, very concerned and alarmed, and this is a failure on the part of the government to meet the most basic protections of young people whose human rights are protected in international law.
When you think about the fact that so many of the kids have reported to us the feeling of being caged, their fear, their frustration, the lack of knowledge about when they're going to move out of the watch house, that sense of helplessness and hopelessness, unfortunately what we end up doing is punishing their trauma, punishing their suffering.